here again today with Annette Rhodes. So glad to have you again. Thank you for coming back. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so today is part 2 on healthcare power of attorney and advanced directives. And one of the things that I wanted to be sure to mention is that not only can you have, of course, physical health problems, but you can have mental health problems as well. And so you can name the same person to make mental health decisions for you, and you can describe what kind of authority they have. Can they give you psychotic medications? You know, can they authorize the doctor to do that? Can they authorize antidepressants? Can they submit you to a facility if you need that? Can they do electric shock treatment? You know, how broad, how narrow should their authority be? Many people who have not had any kind of mental illness or, problem in the past generally just choose to have their healthcare agent make those decisions for them. But people who have a diagnosis, say bipolar disease, they've had some experience with medications and certain things, and they often want to create an advance directive. It's not an end-of-life directive, but an advance directive with regard to what kind of institution they're going to be submitted to, if it came to that, of what kind of medications they want to reject or accept, so that they can really limit the authority. They know that certain medications are going to be bothersome to them. They can reject having those medications. And so even if they're unable mentally to make good healthcare decisions or mental health decisions, that advance directive will stand.
Wow, I never thought about that for
really
mental health. Yeah.
It's really important because you're not making your own decisions now, and you know that certain things need to happen. So that's a really good thing to do. Anybody who's had any kind of issue with that should take a good, strong look at having both a mental health care agent and also a mental health care advance directive.
Interesting. So that's in addition, almost in addition to.
It's an additional document.
Yeah, in addition to if they have that kind of situation.
If you have that situation, I definitely say that, right? But also think, particularly as you're older, depression comes often with illness. And so I always recommend that my clients really think carefully about at least allowing them to give you antidepressants. Because you may have a doctor who feels like that's mental health, and if you've said no to mental health authority, then they're going to have to jump through some hoops to get you what they think you need, your agent will.
And with dementia, at what stage is it acceptable to assign someone as a mental health directive? I mean, is there a cutoff point, or, let's say someone goes and they find out that they're in, early stage dementia. I mean,
I see. You're asking, like, is there a point where it's too late to do this, to create that? Yes. There is, and we struggle with that in legal profession because we're kind of the gatekeepers on that. We have some rules that dictate to us. So I could ask you to do a few things. For me, I'd ask you, like, who are your children, ask you to tell time, follow some instructions. Because there's it's called a mini mental status test, and I see a lot of social workers will give that too. So it doesn't take a whole lot of skill, so attorneys can do it, right? And just to find that out. And then, there's kind of a grayness there. If somebody's not competent, I had one woman who had early diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and her memory was going, but she was still there. And I asked her who her children were, and she said, I have a boy and a girl. And I said, do you know their names? And she said, I can't think of their names right now. So I said, how about I give you multiple choice? So I gave her multiple choice, and she knew right off. She just needed to be prompted. She had the capacity to make decisions. She just didn't have the memory to pull from, from her store of memories to tell me things. Yeah. But she was competent to make those decisions. So we went through other tests too, just to be sure of that. It's really difficult. We want to make sure that when clients come in to see us, especially elderly clients, that they're not under duress. No one's making them change their will. No one's making them do something different with their financial power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney. We'll make sure that they're competent and able to make these decisions themselves, and they are making those decisions for themselves.
You mentioned something earlier about North Carolina laws. How much of a variable is there between states? Because just like I know I have family here and I have family in other states. So,
That's such a great question. I don't think I can answer that for you.
wow.
Yeah.
You know, so you just have to ask per state to find out. I mean,
Well, to tell you the truth, some states allow suicide. North Carolina does not. So you'll find that.
That'd be an
I believe
example.
Oregon. So that's something that legally you can't do, and no one else can do it for you, right? You can't do assisted suicide
right.
in North Carolina. And really laws are based on morals, and so those are the population, or majority of the population believes that's the right thing, because people do talk about premature decisions, right? Sometimes people kill themselves and they didn't need to. There's medications,
right.
There's a change of circumstances can often help. So you see that a lot. So every state is going to allow a healthcare power of attorney, but exactly what they allow is generally a little different in this sense. North Carolina has the ability. You have the ability in North Carolina, if you don't have a healthcare power of attorney, haven't named an agent. We talked about Forstow and his mom having to get a guardian. A guardian can do certain things. So a guardian can make some healthcare decisions for you, but they're limited.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look on your handout, we made a comparison table, and we tried to be just as detailed as we felt we could be on this and being accurate. So if you see the blue line or the teal line at the top, if you are without an advance directive, and this is in North Carolina, when life-prolonging decisions can be made on your behalf if you will die in a relatively short period of time, or if you are permanently unconscious. So a guardian can make that decision. Other people who might make that decision are parents, spouse, children, adult children, the guardian, the healthcare agent. If you don't have an advance directive, a healthcare agent can make that decision. And then the last one is always the oddest thing to me, and it's basically somebody that the doctors believe knows you and can accurately describe what you want. I don't know who that would be. Your neighbor?
Your dog.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's a little scary, and I think the doctor should be quite careful with that, because if they withhold life-saving treatment, there's no going back. Right.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think is totally relevant here is we have so many people moving to North Carolina now from other states. So I think it is important for them to change their healthcare power of attorney, is it not, when they get to North Carolina as a result of that?
It could be, but most states, and North Carolina is one of them, if that document was valid in another state, North Carolina is going to honor it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then the laws of that state are going to be used to interpret that healthcare power of attorney. So I'm not so concerned about that if people have one. I'm more concerned about the content of that. Is it what you want now? Is it broad enough? Does it give your agent enough power or too much power? And have you named an agent and a few successors? And is it up to date? I mean, are the phone numbers up to date? That kind of thing.
Yeah,
because it doesn't do any good if you've got their landline and they don't have one anymore, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So, yeah. So looking back at that handout then, Jenny, if you, and now we're looking at the lilac line, if you have the North Carolina statutory form, and there's a link at the bottom of the handout where you can go and actually pull up a form that you can print out and fill out. So I feel like it's a little difficult to follow, so take your time with it. There are places to initial, those kinds of things. When you do that, that will allow your agent to, or you to direct with an advance directive, that if you'll die within a relatively short period of time, they can withhold medication or withdraw it, medication or any kind of treatment that's sustaining your life. If you're permanently unconscious, they can do it. And in addition to those, a substantial loss of cognitive ability. So substantial loss of cognitive ability is somewhere above a coma. You're not in a coma. Coma means unreactive in kind of layman terms, but severe loss of cognitive ability is, not knowing your name, not knowing people, not able to talk, or you're responding, and you might respond. So you really have to think about that what is a substantial loss of cognitive ability. So I want to jump down below that now and let's take the quiz, Jenny.
Uh-oh.
So I want everybody out there to take the quiz at the same time. And let's see if your answers match Jenny's. So with respect to the statutory powers, for how long?
Annette.
You're going to like this.
Okay.
How long is a relatively short period of time?
2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks. What did you say? Because to me, a relatively short period of time would be 3 days. To some people, it might be 3 months.
Yeah.
And if you don't describe what is a relatively short period of time in your healthcare power of attorney, it's up to somebody else to make that determination.
Great point. So I didn't flunk.
Oh, no. There's no flunking here.
Okay.
No, flunking. So if you're without an advance directive, that's what the statute says. And then they've got to, kind of work through that. What's a relatively short period of time to me might not be a relatively short period of time to you. And you really should describe that in your advance directive. So here's another question. What is unconscious?
Non-responsive to hearing, touch, smell.
Yeah. I kind of gave that one away.
Yeah, you did. I was ready for that one.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
But for other people, and I'll talk to you, now this is still very controversial. Terry Schiavo. A lot of people have heard her name, lived in Florida. She and her husband at some point were separated. I don't know when. She was young. Her parents said she's not in a coma. Her husband said she is. And they battled over that, and it was expensive. It took a lot of money to kind of finally come to that conclusion. She was responsive, but we won't go into the court ruling. Like I said, it's very controversial. So you really should describe that as being unresponsive, and with a good description of what that means, because it's not a medical term really. It's not something that the doctors will pinpoint as, oh yes, they all agree on that. That's my understanding.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that case.
Describe that. Yeah, that was quite some time ago, but that was difficult. So last question on the quiz, Jenny, is what is a substantial loss of cognitive ability?
Gosh. Again, not being able to, can't communicate, can't tell the clock, can't remember names, can't perform certain tasks, just doesn't relate. That it's anything that has to do with mental, anything.
So some people would say memory.
Yeah.
If I don't remember anyone, then I don't want to be resuscitated. But I'll tell you another story. Justice Ginsburg on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I read an article years ago. She divorced her husband because he had Alzheimer's, and he was in love with someone else at the nursing home. And so she very quietly gave him a divorce so that they could be married. He had no idea who she was. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that is.
It's just an amazing thing. I'm pretty sure it's Ginsburg too. I can look it up again, but there you go. So sometimes people don't have that memory, but they're still happy.
Yeah, and still living.
Right. So what does it mean to have a substantial enough loss? It's really personal. What is a substantial loss to you that you would want your advance directive to say withhold care now, right?
Right.
So and when you might want to withhold care might not be when I would want to withhold care. I might want to withhold care sooner.
Right.
Or I might want to withhold
And it could change. Like we said, with age, things change.
That's right.
Different stages of life, things definitely change.
That's correct. So let's go back up to our little chart there. So under the however, right in the middle, if you have an advance directive that's tailored for you, and they can be tailored, the law allows them to be tailored, then you should include some definitions, like what is a relatively short period of time to you? When do you want them to take measures to withhold care? What is unconscious? How do you want to describe that? What's a substantial loss of cognitive ability? Plus other things that you may want to have a good definition of so that they don't have to worry. I don't know if mom wanted this or not. is this what she wanted? It's important to describe those things. So you can also do certain things like have various levels of cognitive loss. If I have, if you've got Alzheimer's, at what stage, what kinds of treatments do you want to be sure you have, and which ones do you want your agent to be able to not give you or give you, depending upon your prognosis.
Right.
Right? So just to give them all the help that you can, and also just to limit authority so that, you're still, as much as possible, in control of what happens to you. So various levels of cognitive loss, you can set those out and say, under this certain level of loss, I want this, under this, I want this, and don't want that. So there are certain things that you can do. Various stages of a progressive illness. That's a good question. If you have terminal cancer, how long do you have to live? When is it terminal?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's another question. Define terminal. Is it the last 6 weeks of your life?
Could be whatever your lifetime is.
Is it the last 6 months?
Yeah.
When you have a terminal illness, this is important stuff to really consider. Like, what would I want? And then also specific diseases. Cancer, Parkinson's. I had the dearest couple years ago. They're both gone now. And she had MS. And I'm particularly sensitive to people with MS because my grandmother had MS. One of my grandmothers. And this sweet woman said, as long as I can communicate, because she knew she was not going to be able to talk, as long as I can communicate with my eyes or even smile with my eyes, I want to live. That's what she said. And when I can't do that, then I want you to let me go. I asked her husband, because we were doing one for each, and he said, as long as she's alive, I want to stay alive. But when she's gone, I want to live. Isn't it something?
Yeah, it is.
I know. So it's really,
It's very personal.
Very, and it's very much decisions that you should think through and make, and realize that it's not often one and done. It's good to get it done, but review it. I always say that about estate planning. Review those documents. They can change. Your circumstances can change. You can have a great healthcare power of attorney for you now, but if you come down with cancer and beat it, you might have a different decision if cancer comes back.
Right.
Right? So there's just things that you want to think about when you're thinking through this. And it's a lot to think about, and I know that. But it's also great. You won't regret having a really good.
What are the percentage? What would you say the percentage of?
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
How many people have it?
Yeah.
I think actually, I don't know for healthcare power of attorney,
Mm-hmm.
but just estate planning alone, it's under 30%.
Yeah. Everyone that I ask about this, I say, well, I already have a will. I said, no.
Right. That's not the same thing.
No, not the same thing. It's really interesting to me, the assumption. So that's one of the reasons we're doing these sessions, because the education process is so extremely important.
And I can't think of the name of it right now, but if you go to our website, we have some blogs. And one of the blogs is like, what are the fundamental parts of an estate plan? And that describes what each document is. So you can look at that and then decide, well, I need a general power of attorney, or I need a healthcare power of attorney. Yeah. What do I have? If I'm happy with that, you may just have a will. A will's not going to do anything until you're gone. Yeah. And this healthcare power of attorney, this is really about your life during your life, right?
Yes. And if you're a caregiver and the person is an adult or orphan, very highly recommend that, you somehow have a way or a healthcare power of attorney to help that person, because there's nothing more hopeless and helpless for you to be with someone as a caregiver and them not giving it to you if it's their will to do so. And for them not to have, provided you with that when you're endearing it to them, and people don't think about it. They just don't think about it.
Somebody who loves you,
Yeah.
who you trust, should be making decisions for you when you cannot make decisions.
Yeah.
And most people say, I don't want to live like that. But unless it's in writing, it's going to be awfully hard to prove that you don't want to.